Hello and welcome to episode number 42 of the WP Café show with me, Keith Devon.
And with me, Mark Wilkinson. Hello, everybody. Hello. How has your week been, Keith? What have you been up to?
It has
Busy?
been very busy. Busy. It's so boring saying that, isn't it? Everyone always says they're busy. Everyone's busy, so that's nothing special, is it?
There's busy, and then there's you're busy, and I think you're busy.
From a whole life point of view, very, very busy. So
Exactly.
Building a house, planning a 40th birthday, trying to do some work and amongst it all. So yeah, it's been pretty tough, to be honest, the last couple of weeks, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. So
Good.
Yeah. And I've been teaching myself how to DJ as well. So that has been really good fun. I did my first ever recorded mix last night. So it was nearly a 2-hour mix of some like dance classics. So that was really good fun. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. How are you?
Different. Yeah, very good. It's not been that busy for me this week, actually. I've had a lot of activity on our Job Relay product this week. So I've been doing a lot of integrations and things with other people's sites with that. So it's been good. And bits and bobs and things, got some quotes to get out and stuff. So yeah, it's been all right.
Yep.
It has been all right. We have 5 people watching us, apparently. One of those is probably me, actually. So maybe we're going to have 4. If you are watching us, Tony's watching us. Hi, Tony. Thank you for joining us. Then do say hi in the chat and let us know that you're with us. What are we talking about today, Keith?
We're going to have a good old moan, I think.
We're going to moan.
Yeah. Hi, Carolina.
Negative
hi,
for Friday.
It's been negative. Well, hopefully it'll be an upbeat moan.
All right. Is that possible? An upbeat moan? Okay, we'll do our best.
I don't know, because I feel like I'm in quite a good mood, which is in stark contrast to yesterday. But I'm in quite a good mood. So I feel like I can do an upbeat moan today.
Right. Okay.
I'm specifically moaning about modern WordPress development and how I feel like a complete beginner all over again.
We've all been there.
Yeah, I'm just getting really frustrated with it. I go through phases of this. Like when we first jumped into the block editor, I was like, oh my God, everything's difficult. And it was, and like it was early days too, and things were changing quickly, and it was all very frustrating, but I felt like that settled a little bit. Not completely, of course. Carolina says she was looking forward to a good rant. You will get it, Carolina, don't worry.
On another note, interestingly, I seem to have the power to put comments on the screen now, which is like, never had that power before. I don't know why.
Damn it.
But there you go. I must be logged in as some other user. Anyway, there we go. I feel like I've got the power now.
Yeah, no, so I've just been, I was getting really frustrated in the last couple of weeks. Basically, we decided on a recent client project to try to use full site editing to build the site, because we did feel like we were getting to the point where we were kind of hacking together our own version of full site editing, and it felt like maybe it's time just to use the real thing. So we are trying, and it's been painful. It's been really, really painful. Haven't enjoyed it at all. We have had a few little wins, which I think we spoke about a little bit last week. And Mark, you still need to do that video for the channel.
That's an interesting point in itself, but I'll come back to that in a minute.
Yeah. So that's where we're at. But off the back of that, I tweeted my frustration, as you do, and Twitter being Twitter, social media being social media, like negative tweets get a lot of engagement. So that kind of like did the rounds, and it got some like interesting feedback. And one of the things you always hear whenever you complain, and this is the right response, like be specific. Like, what are you actually
complaining about?
What are you actually complaining about? What are the problems you're facing? So, So that, that's one of the reasons we're doing this show. But the other interesting thing that happened off the back of my rants was that the developer relations team at Automatic, and I didn't even know this team existed. So the developer relations team, specifically Justin Tadlock, reached out to me for a chat. And we had that chat, and it was great, partly because I've been a big Justin Tadlock fan for the last decade. So it was super, super cool to be able to have a chat with him. Yeah, it was just it just felt good, that someone was listening and that does care, because I know he does care about this stuff. Whether he has the power to make a big difference to these things or not, I'm not entirely sure. But just to have that conversation was great. So
good,
yeah,
good.
There's my little intro.
So we've got some things to obviously outline in our frustrations with. Are we calling it modern WordPress development? We're not specifically talking about full-site editing, are we?
Not specifically. I think it's everything around the shift to JavaScript, the block editor, full-site editing. Yeah, it's the whole package.
So, what do you want to start off with one of these? Or do you want me to start off with one of these? What do you want to do?
Well, yeah, I've spoken for long enough. How are you feeling about it? What's your first frustration?
I think overall, my feeling is it's actually I feel a bit more detached than you, because actually I haven't done as much as you, simply because a lot of what we do now isn't PHP and it isn't back-end WordPress stuff that we used to do with blocks. So it's actually, there's bits and bobs that I've had to come in and help with, and one of them was to try and find the solution to this updating of content that we talked about last week. And other than that, I do feel I feel a bit left out in that I don't have as much to actually contribute to do, which is interesting, because when you talk about like the things that have frustrated you during the week, I don't really have any answers or anything, because I haven't actually done it like you've done it, in terms of jumped in there and tried to have a go at it. So I can understand that must be also frustrating for you, in that we don't really have a soundboard almost, because I've not had that experience. So, but
Yeah.
for me, I think if I had to pick one thing that's the most frustrating for me when I've been trying to work with blocks, I guess, and that sort of thing, it's just the documentation. It's it's all over the place, and I just think there needs some time to tidy that up and just make it. For example, there's quite a lot. Well, there's a lot more now than there was of people's own blog posts writing stuff out, which is great. People writing how to do stuff, but because of the nature of modern WordPress development, many of those articles, and this is also the same for some of the official articles, assume too much for me. So as a touch point for when I touch on a piece of documentation, I'm finding out something, and the documentation I'm reading has already assumed that I have done A, B, and C. An example of that was block variations. Block variations? I'm getting mixed up with the term. Yeah, that's right, isn't it? That's where you have like the columns block is a variation block, isn't it? And an example of that is you land on a page that talks about variations and how to set them up. And the code that's on the screen, I can't just copy and paste into a JavaScript file. I've got to have a build process set up. And the page doesn't even talk about that at all. And I know you could argue, well, you can't do that on every page, and you can't. But there needs to be some mechanism whereby I understand that I can't just paste that onto some JavaScript file and run it in the editor. I need a build process, and there needs to be some reference to the definitive step for doing that. Because for me, that's really frustrating. You land on a solution. Yes, this is the solution. And then you just get nowhere because I can't do anything with it, which is really frustrating.
Yeah. Playing devil's advocate, though, like not every tutorial can go back to basics and get you all the way there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you.
Not every tutorial can teach you React and teach you how to use NPM and teach how to use this, that, and the other. Like at some point, things have to be assumed.
But are we at that some point? That's my point.
Well,
with this being new,
I think we are.
I don't know,
because at that point, like I said, you can't expect someone that's writing a blog post about how to use template patterns. I don't even know if that's a thing that exists. Right? Say there's something called template patterns. How do you use them? This is the guide. That guide cannot also be a full guide to NPM and React. Like that would be ridiculous. Like, so it has to assume that you can't teach everyone the whole history of everything just to top up the last bit or just add, otherwise every article would be
I get that,
20,000 words long.
I get that,
yeah.
But I've just done a simple Google there for I can't remember what I Googled now. Go back. Set up a block editor build process, and you get developer resources comes up, block editor handbook setup, and it doesn't. Well, it kind of maybe it is a bit better than I thought actually, but I just think it's missing some things that you need to do first. So I don't know. Maybe that's just me, and it's a lot better than it was. Don't get me wrong, it's a lot better than it was. But I read Justin's tutorial. I think it was a couple of weeks ago on query block variations and how to sort of extend those. And I just thought that was like a different level. That was like a really quality document that you could read and understand. Some aspects of it I didn't, and that's fine. But the majority of it was well written. It was well explained, and that's the key, I think. Explained. And for me, like commenting some of the code blocks that are on the development docs, and everyone says don't comment, and I completely disagree with them. I'm sorry. If you're trying to teach someone what to do, explain what it's doing. You don't have to put it in your code, but literally, tell them what's happening on that line. I think that's important, but I know I'm probably in a minority there, but I think that's really important.
No, I completely agree. Because especially, I was going to say, like, when you're not really familiar with the syntax of React, for example, say you know a bit of JavaScript, but React, there's some of the React syntax that you don't understand, like having some comments in there would be great. I guess the argument should be, well, you shouldn't be writing React if you don't understand the syntax. But so many people in this ecosystem have learned just by doing and getting stuck in, and not by becoming world-class programmers first and then coming to WordPress, So I think you've got to read the room a little bit in terms of like who are the developers and like what is their background and like how can we help people like us to get to get started and get involved.
That's what I mean. It's like, who are we trying to help here? Are we trying to help people build blocks and full site editing, and then look at who are those people? What do their skill set is? And I don't know the answer to this, but my gut feeling is the majority don't know React and they don't know JavaScript as well. So surely we should be trying to help them get to a point where they do.
Yeah, there's definitely like, I don't really like the term gatekeeping, and but it does feel like it's there, whether it's like deliberate or conscious or just or not. Like it feels like there is a bit of gatekeeping going on, and I don't love it. Even just some of the comments on like Twitter and that around like how good a developer you should be, or like you should be able to do X or Y to be a WordPress developer. Like we've touched on that stuff anyway, but so I think some of that's not particularly helpful. But the documentation thing completely agree with, and I don't know if you already said it there, but just the fact that it's just all over the place. Like on the call with Justin, he was like, "Oh, have you seen the kind of WordPress developer blog?" I'm like, "Don't know, have I? Maybe." And he pointed me towards the thing that his team have kind of set up and are running now, and it looks great. But it's just another place to go.
Yeah,
it's like, should I be going there, or should I be subscribing to this thing on GitHub, or this other thing on Track, or this? Like, it's all over the place. Like, I remember early on with blocks, I think I was looking into block variations and trying to find some documentation. And the only documentation there was in the release notes on the blog.
Yeah.
And like, so it wasn't actually in the developer handbook. It wasn't on GitHub, but it was on a blog post. I was just like, what is going on here? Like, it's just not joined. It's not joined up. And I know what the response is going to be. Get involved, join the documentation team, blah, 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 blah. It's like the number of people I know that have tried to get involved in this project and just had the worst experience. Yeah, I'm just like, including us to some extent. So sorry,
to be honest, but that's like asking me to write a French phrase book. Like, I don't even know French, so how would I even start writing the book that tells
exactly.
me? It's really, I can't do that.
We're trying to learn it, not trying to write
it.
Exactly.
You know. Alex says, thank you, Alex, for joining us. Carolina's documentation is the only really useful content I've read on Theme.json and figuring out Gutenberg theming.
It's so good.
It is so good. If you haven't seen Carolina's site, then do go and look at that. Is it fullsiteediting.com? I think.
Yes.
I think it is.
And it was where I went whenever I was building this first theme. I literally went through it page by page to configure my Theme.json for that build. And it's great. And she does an amazing job. I don't know where she gets the motivation and resilience and but Carolina, thank you so much. I know you're watching or listening. So thank you from us.
I think just coming back to the documentation, just thought one of the frustrations as well is that I've seen articles where you have something that has, you pass parameters to it that do things, but it never gives you a full list of the parameters available. And then in another tutorial, I'll find, you can pass that to that, can you? And it's like, why isn't that on that documentation that I can do that? Anyway, sidetracked. Let's move on to another frustration.
Yeah, I mean, for me, all of this is interlinked anyway, but it's just, I find it really difficult at the minute because I don't have it. I don't know how I should be doing things. Like, I face all these problems. So we build custom themes for people. Yeah. And even that whole concept of themes is under threat. So I'm feeling like, how should I be building sites these days? I don't really know. And I kind of need some guidance, I think, from the community probably, or even, people at Automatic or the developer relations team or something. It's like, if you're building custom sites, this is how we advise going about these common problems. Like we've already mentioned, we have to figure out how to create some kind of reusable kind of template part, like kind of like a reusable but editable query template. It was really convoluted, very hacky, and we had to figure that out on our own. And it just feels like, okay, fair enough. Maybe we're closer to the kind of front edge of all of this than we give ourselves credit for, but it feels, I guess it sort of feels to me like we're being expected to embrace this. It's like you should be building sites using full site editing. It's ready. If you're not, you're falling behind as an agency or as developers. But when you actually come to experience it, I feel like we're trailblazing. I feel like, we're the ones.
Yeah, we're the ones actually testing all this stuff out. Yeah. And does it actually work?
Yeah. And so that's a kind of frustration in a way, to the point where actually I think I'm probably going to take a step back and go back to where we were, probably relying a little bit more on things like ACF.
Yeah, I think interesting you mentioned the video, and we spoke last week how I'd found a solution to the updatable, like post card, wasn't it? So we had like I think we use the example of related posts content at the bottom of things. And found that a way of using template parts and patterns to make that so that if we made an update to it, it would push throughout the website. So I promised you a video, and I sat down and did the video on, I think it was early this week, I can't remember what it was, it's Tuesday morning or something. And I got 25 minutes into the video, maybe it wasn't that long, I can't remember, and I just got completely lost. So I had to stop because I couldn't remember. I just got completely lost in this. And that was an example of like, if I can't understand this just doesn't work. It was just so complicated to get it right.
And that's
I'm talking there about, sorry, Keith, I'm talking about the developer part of that, not necessarily the end client, I got completely confused about what patterns and variations, and it was just really confusing me, so I had to stop.
But that came up, like I had a mastermind call thing earlier this week, and I was chatting with other developers, all of whom are better developers than I am, and they're all really struggling with it. So top developers are struggling with full site editing. Who is it for? If it's not for us, if we can't understand it and get it to work, there's no chance any of our clients can understand it and get it to work.
I literally can't imagine saying to a client, that you go and build your site with full site. It's impossible. They'd never do it.
So who's it for? Is eventually, I'm guessing it's eventually for people, or for our clients, for people who own the website and want to put together a whole site themselves without needing developers. That's the goal, but it feels so far off.
Yeah,
it feels so far away from that. But the block editor came on leaps and bounds over the course of a couple of years, to the point now where I really enjoy using it. So there's every chance that it'll happen with full site editing. I'm sure it will. I would put money on it that this time next year it's a different beast altogether, and it's a lot more manageable, and they've solved loads of the problems. But I think this particular frustration, is that it feels like it was sold, like it was ready,
it's in core, isn't it? So
it's in core, exactly.
It's got a beta label still on it, but
yeah, people that install WordPress today from fresh are gonna be faced with this.
Yeah,
it's just I just think it's crazy. I
don't think we'll encourage them to use WordPress if they came across it at the moment. It's complicated. It's very, very powerful, don't get me wrong, but it's very complicated. I mean, you mentioned to me yesterday, I think it was, we're still using the concept of template parts as a thing. I know what a template part is, I think, and I can't get my head around how all this works. So someone who isn't a web developer or isn't WordPress savvy, they're not going to have a clue what a template part even means.
But I think my other example there was a query block. What the hell is a query to an average person?
Yeah,
they want a list of posts. They don't want a query. What does query mean? It's totally bizarre. I hope this is getting ranty enough for you, Caroline.
Well, it goes back to what you were saying. Who is it for? Because if it's for developers to build sites and allow people to edit them, as in, then query block, you could argue, well, that makes sense because developers know what it is. They can use it and they can, create a pattern that's got a different name and it's more user friendly. But if it's for clients to start building the sites, then it probably doesn't make sense, does it? It's a tough one.
Yeah. So been lots of activity in the comments. I don't think.
Should we go through some of those comments and things?
Go on then, Mark. Now that you have the power, you can you can get them on the screen. If you're listening along on the podcast, we're talking about YouTube comments. So this goes out as a live show on YouTube. So you can, if you ever want to follow us along live and add your voice to the conversation in real time, you can do that.
Yes, Carolina says, stepping back is understandable. It's important to gain enough knowledge to be able to decide if you can use it or not. And you have done that. And I think it's hard that we don't really have time to do it on a non-project. And doing it on a project seems like, you sort of trying to, what's the word trying to run before you can walk, or whatever the phrase is, which I think is right. It's kind of frustrating. Yeah. I haven't read these before I put them on the screen. Alex says, building on the Sage theme with ACF blocks and ACF Composer has been a really good way of dipping our toes into Gutenberg whilst maintaining a good development pace. Our team seems pretty happy with it. Yeah, so using bits and then sticking with bits that you already know how to do. I think that's an interesting way. I mean, we've done that though with ACF, haven't we? Some of the projects we've done, we've used the block editor. We've enhanced that with some ACF blocks because they're far easy to work with, etc.
And I was thinking, just around the whole ACF thing and stepping back, the site that we've built that we're currently building, I would have finished it 2 weeks ago if we'd done it the usual way. Like some of the stuff that I reckon in ACF would have taken us a handful of hours, it's taken us days to get right.
You can't beat that. Like people, a lot of people don't like ACF for some reason or other, but I can spin up a custom block with ACF in a matter of an hour, if that.
Yeah,
that would take me hours and hours to build as a block. In fact, days at the moment.
Is the editing experience probably slightly better if it was a custom block? Probably. Is the performance potentially slightly better on the front end? Maybe. Is it worth 5 times the cost to the client? No, definitely not. Unless your client is like the right kind of client, like big enterprise, like this stuff really matters because it's at scale. Yeah. But for us, no.
No, not really. Have I missed any out?
I don't think so.
Yeah, so it's been a frustrating week, hasn't it, really? But then when you say about it's taking far longer now to build things, we are using something that is new to us. So whether that wasn't the block editor or full site editing, it would have always taken longer because you've got to get used to using it and
okay. So the big difference for me there, and I'm not sure that this is going to be something that goes away, is that if we're building ACF blocks, I have full control over that markup.
Yeah.
And it can be as lean as I need it to be. I can have all the classes I need it to have.
Yep.
I have all the elements and all the wrappers and whatever I need. I can build that. If I'm building with blocks, I'm at the mercy of the blocks that are available. And some of, like within the query block, for example, the one that we built, because we had to jump through all those hoops, so we needed you need the query block, and then there's like a template, WP block template or something. And then there was a group block inside that because we have to make things locked. And then, so, you're about 5 levels down before you get to the actual element you're trying to style. And none of those elements above it have classes that are particularly good for targeting what you're trying to target with CSS. It's all...
And then we're at the mercy of those classes just being... No, we're at the mercy of those classes just being randomly changed as well at some point in the future, and then everything just breaks.
Exactly. Or the user, making a change that you haven't anticipated, like and changing the layout so that it doesn't work, or changing a class that you've relied on in some way. So it's not. I don't see that getting better.
No. Sorry, Tony, I missed your comment at the top here. Something for your question time. Where are we with PHP versions? Servers should be well into version 8, but I'm getting deprecation errors on WP with 8.1.9. I am no expert in this, so I can't really say much about it, although I do agree with you. I have also had issues when I've used the latest, greatest PHP, the one that whatever I'm using at the time has as the max value. So I think at the moment I've been using 8.0 point something, whatever it's installed. So I think that's where I am. I don't know if anyone else has had experience of that as well, but I also have had the same issue. So I'm not sure what the current recommended is for WordPress, to be honest. If anyone knows, let us know in the comments. But certainly from my experience, I would install 8.0 point something, but I hope.
Yeah.
Anything else that we need to go through? Peter has a comment. Oh, how do I take that one off now? Oh dear, hang on. I'll get there in the end. This newfangled power I've got. Isn't it? Peter, thank you for joining us. Who is it for is an important question to ask. That should also drive how it is presented. I feel that FSE, full site editing, was presented too soon to the general user population that still picks themes by the thumbnail. I presume that's by the look and it looks cool and therefore I'll pick it. Don't think I disagree with that, to be honest. I think for me, it feels, I don't know, you get this when you're using it. I use it and I get the feeling that, wow, this is so powerful. This is, and it feels like it's so close to being what you need, yet in many ways, there's just some things that are missing, which means that it's you can't use it. You know what I mean? So if it was kind of like way off, you'd almost just dismiss it and say, well, we're not using it. But it's kind of like so close to being really good, yet the things that it hasn't got or is doing wrong, I won't say wrong, but doing in a way that doesn't work for us, are fundamentally a problem to us. And like, you can't get round those things. I think that's why it's a bit frustrating sometimes for me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I still can't reliably move away from ACF blocks. Yeah, I think we're probably still in that situation. Although this build we've just been working on doesn't have any, I don't think, does it?
But no, it doesn't. But whether or not we should have or not is another question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
I don't think we'll need to on that particular project. And then there's one from Joe there. Have your clients found using native blocks more difficult than ACF blocks? That's a really good question. We haven't had a lot of feedback either way, because I think most of the time they don't know the difference. Like, they don't know that a block's been built with ACF or that it's native. So we don't get that specific feedback. So, and this current project's the first one we have done completely without ACF. So and it's not like that.
The big recruitment build we did, though, which uses it doesn't use full site editing, granted, but it uses the block editor, and it uses a mix of lots of core blocks, obviously, and lots of ACF blocks. There's probably about 5 or 6 that we've built, isn't there? And no one from the project that's editing content has come back and said the way in which we edit content with these blocks being the 5 that we built in ACF is horrible and we don't like it. Yeah. No one said that. I mean, they might be thinking it, but they haven't said it. So it's interesting that it might be a perceived problem rather than an actual problem. I'm not so sure. Alex has a comment here to Joe, actually, is that our clients have found native blocks more difficult. At least they make mistakes without realizing ACF lets us create very specific fields that are hard to mess up. Yeah, that's always the sort of plus with ACF, isn't it? That you've got this. It's kind of an editing experience where you are just filling in boxes, and then the site does the rest for you.
Well, I think one day we need to do that as a whole topic, like, the kind of locked down, bulletproof brand integrity experience, and you can do whatever you want to your website experience, and like where people sit in that, where we, that's an interesting topic.
So to finish up with then, Keith.
Yeah.
We're going to be sat here I'm stood actually, but never mind. We're going to be stood here in 12 months' time doing episode number 100 and something of WP at Café. Are we going to be building every site with a site editor, and is it going to be awesome? Do you think?
I think it's 2 questions there. Probably yes. We'll be building every site with the site editor, I would think. I'm pretty sure we will be.
Yeah, I think we will be.
And will it be awesome?
Awesome might be the wrong word, but will it be a darn sight better than it is at the moment, maybe?
Yes.
I agree.
Both of those things.
Yeah. So all of our rants today then are a bit irrelevant, because it's going to get better. It's going to be fine. So go and use it.
It's not irrelevant, because this is what people are feeling right now. No. I know we're not the only ones.
Sorry,
but we're not. You can see from the comments, and you can see from the I've heard from the conversations I've had with other developers. Like, this is. I'm like talking to Justin. He was just like, "Yep, I've heard this. I've heard this. I've heard this complaint. I've heard this complaint. I've heard this issue." Like, it was just nothing I was saying was brand new.
Yeah,
it's not stuff that people don't know. It's not unique to us. So anyway, thank you everyone for listening to our rant today. Very cathartic for us to be able to express ourselves in this way and have people listen along and agree. So really, really appreciate it. I just want a quick shout out to, I can't remember their names. I think Munch92 might have been one. But we've had some really, really nice comments recently, just from people commenting. I think they've been on YouTube, just saying that they really enjoy the show. And I just want to say that means an awful lot to us. We enjoy making the show, but it's always I don't know, warms my heart whenever I hear that it's helping out other people too. So thank you to those people who've done that. If you do enjoy it, consider subscribing. It's easy to do. You just click a button, and you can click another button to get notifications whenever the show goes out. And we do put other content out, not as often as we should, but I'm sure Mark's going to have another attempt at that video. Yeah. So thanks for joining us today. Hope you have a great week, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.